This is a continuation of my Vega project. This is the grill, picture of an actual grill, and I'm going to put one into the model. I have the option of either making a texture or modeling the actual grill. I'm going to actually model the grill because I don't have a good texture that I can distort just right to fit in there. I may force myself to do that if this doesn't work, because this will produce a more complex model than I would prefer, actually. But this is the short-term solution. And of course, another disadvantage is that it was very tedious building this. This has been cut back quite drastically. Essentially, I created bars, horizontal and vertical, using planes, as you can see here. This, as I understand it, would not work properly in 3D Studio Max. I've been learning 3D Studio Max, and this doesn't work in that program. It does work in Blender, one of the many freedoms you get from working in Blender. And I presumed that this would also look wrong because only one face would show, but I also found that that was not true. This works just fine, actually. Both faces display, and so on and so forth. But anyway, just creating the plane isn't good enough because the grill is a V-grill, so you have to subdivide it through the center and then pull the edges back, or rather the ends back. And then they need to be resized to fit the hole for the grill. And I found that this hole did not have the correct dimensions either, so in a bit I'm going to be fixing that as well. Although all of this, to be honest, was very laborious because each of these had to be built. And it's very simple, but there are a fair number of them. I also had to space them. So once I put them in, here's the jumping ahead, I had to measure proportionally. If you have 8 bars down, not counting the ones behind the bumper, which I skipped, you need to figure out how much space is between them. So I figured it out on the calculator there, and then I used the measuring tape feature of Blender to get the correct spacing. Some of these extra features should probably be in another tutorial, like how to use the measuring tape properly and so on. Again, another thing I learned from studying Max is that explanation is really important, because often with these programs they're so complicated that it's far from obvious what a given instruction means if you're not familiar with the program. So then I create another plane for the vertical bars to rotate it there. And of course it's completely the wrong shape, completely wrong size, because it's a standardized add. So I try to line it up there as best I can. So here I'm resizing it to be a bar in the grill. Now it's more or less the correct size, but I'm going to have to make duplicates, and I have to move it over, because the orthographic view, as always, doesn't give you the most accurate diagonal view, you could say. You have to always take straight views when you're working in an orthographic. And then you get a pretty accurate idea of how to line up. So here I'm counting the bars to make sure I have the correct amount. The horizontal bars are 7, and the vertical bars are 11. Here I'm taking the measurements again. Using the calculator to make sure my very simple math is not screwed up. I'm using the number 12 there for the calculation because it's 12 gaps. It's 11 bars and 12 gaps. This is a bit of tedium here as I try to line the tape measure up just right. And here I'm having to realign these bars to put them in the correct position in the grill, make them the correct size. So I'm using the rest of the model as a reference, and of course that's tedium, so I zoom ahead to the last bar here. This was quite time-consuming, actually, this part of the project, even though it's not really complicated per se. And initially, I was going to make the grill slanted forward until I checked some photographs and found that this was not accurate. So I had to go back to the photos and look right there. You know, the grill does not slant forward. So I had to adjust the original model to accommodate that fact and then fix that grill. The Vega is a fairly simple design, except it's also deceptively complicated because you miss things because you expect it to be simpler than it really is. So I'm taking the ends of the grill there and I'll just pull them forward. Relatively crude fix here. It's a relatively crude fix, but I also have to realign everything to fit the correct shape, because the photo also indicated that my shape is not quite correct. It's not really a perfect rectangle. It's a slightly rounded off. It's not a complete box. The grill is kind of crude. People sometimes called it an egg crate at the time. And this was pretty much in line with a lot of Chevy grills in the 70s and 80s, actually. The Caprice had something similar to this well into the late 80s, till 87 model year. Anyway, I'll continue next with some retexturing. Thanks for watching.